Writing the descriptive essay. Firstly, we're going to look at the purpose of writing the descriptive essay. Ask yourself, why have I chosen to go descriptive? Why have I chosen that style of writing? It might really just be up your street. If you like to describe people, places, objects, scenes, that is also something that you can practice a lot at home. You can sit in a coffee shop and jot down a few things about people, about places, and what you see in front of you. And so it describes the function, or the purpose is to describe. Okay, so in other words, the main focus of your essay must be description. It does not mean that you cannot have a bit of narrative or reflection, but the essay must basically then be descriptive in nature. And it usually answers questions like when is this, like you describe a certain place in the morning when the sun comes through the window or whatever. Where is the coffee shop? Why are you sitting there waiting for your boyfriend? Who are you watching? How are they doing things, etc. So it has to do with looking at detail. Descriptive writing, then, apart from describing and answering these questions of why, where, when, and how, it inspires the imagination by using detail to refine perception. In other words, you're painting pictures. You are creating pictures with words. You are giving the reader a picture using figurative language, using certain types of diction, etc. And you are giving the person this just imaginative picture of what that coffee shop looks like in the morning, for instance, when the sun comes through the window. Picture in words. Features of the descriptive essay. It definitely uses figurative language. So if you like descriptive writing, you're going to have to think of figures of speech. Think of what certain things remind you of, and then bring that in. Because it captures the attention of the reader with a strong image. So what you normally would do is to start with an image, a very strong one, because remember your introduction must be strong, and bring out this image that is striking and that grabs the attention of the reader. And then, of course, you're going to have to very subtly mention it throughout the poem, or just refer to it in some way, perhaps in contrast, or just an extension, or a different word for the same context that you've used in that, or the same image, and you extend it, and then you finally bring it together in the final paragraph. Figures of speech are very important in descriptive language. So, yes, because that sort of gives the bulk of your pictures that you create in the mind of the reader, right? That is the one thing, figurative language. But also make sure that you remember that it doesn't mean that a descriptive essay must have 400 adjectives and adverbs to describe, because those are describing words. No. You must use the describing words very, very sparingly, because it really becomes quite ridiculous if everything has an adjective or an adverb, something that describes. Remember that verbs are often very descriptive in their nature. Perhaps if you find time sometimes to look for various ways in which you can say walk, like stride, like whatever. So many ones. Pace, many. Mince. So look at that. In other words, and those words actually tell you exactly what kind of walking went on. So make use of verbs and use adverbs and adjectives very sparingly, please. But details count, little details that might not even be figurative in nature or very flowery but the little details just help to create this image in the mind of the reader. It is very important that you must vary your sentence patterns, because any essay that has the same kind of sentence, periodic sentence, another periodic sentence, another periodic sentence, another, you must vary your kinds of sentences. Some must be short, some must be longer, and that also counts for description. As in any paragraph, make sure that you use your topic sentence. The fact that you're writing a descriptive essay and not an argumentative essay does not mean that your paragraph, where you are now describing the atmosphere in this coffee shop, for instance, that it should not have a topic sentence. It must still have a topic sentence, and you must embroider around that topic sentence, and you must stick to that. You cannot go and speak about other things which does not relate to this topic sentence at all. Then you know that you're doing the wrong thing. Right, so stick to the topic sentence. And make sure that each paragraph, as I said, sometimes through an image or through colors or through whatever method you'd like to use, that they somehow refer back to the introductory paragraph where you've made your very strong entrance. And that the last paragraph also refers back to the introductory paragraph. But remember, style still comes into play. Your ending, although you are referring back perhaps to the image that you used in the introduction, there can be an ironic twist in the end. It can be an open ending. It can be perhaps a contrast to that image. But it's up to you to go and make that work and make that effective. Some pointers. It's very important that you show and you don't tell. That means stop stating, rather suggest. So in other words, you don't just mention the scene or the emotion, you let the reader experience that scene or emotion. You don't say, this is what it looked like, this is what the sun looked like, this is what the people did. Now, there must be the suggestion going on all the time so that they can get this picture of this lively, say, coffee shop. Less is more, I'm afraid. Please understate rather than overstate. There's nothing worse than a piece of purple writing which is so flowery that really you just can't wait to get to the next paragraph. So understate rather than overstate. That's more effective. But make your observations accurate and detailed. Even little details count. Small details. Once again, vary the sentence lengths. You must remember to do that. Long periodic sentences, for instance, if you use those, it has a certain effect. It makes time stand still for a while, right? Whereas a short, jerky sentence will speed up the writing, and do that for rhythm. Choose fresh adjectives if you have to use adjectives. I'm not saying don't use adjectives, but when you do, choose them very carefully so that they're just the right word for that paragraph. And just a few in the course of the entire essay, not hundreds of them. And you avoid the stale words such as, it was so awesome, and it was nice, it was fabulous, it was great. Fine. Those words are so stale that they have virtually lost their meaning. And they don't create pictures in our minds anymore. You're going to have to do it in a different way by choosing the accurate word for the accurate situation. One idea per paragraph, always important. The linking of the intro and the ending, important. And a very, very important one, and that goes with the imagery that you use, is that you must incorporate as many senses as you can. Because, I mean, the reader can respond to that kind of description, because they also use their senses to experience things, and they can think, they can make the picture work in their minds. So use taste and touch and smell and sight and hearing, but use it very carefully and imaginatively. I've just got two little examples for you to show you that it can be very ordinary sounding, and yet the description can be so just fascinating. This is an example from The Power of One by Bryce Courtenay, and it's a very funny story. I don't know whether you've read it, but in this case, he arrives at the station. Now, some of you might not know a train station, but I mean, ask yourself after you've read this whether you can picture this little train station. The station turned out to be a raised platform about 30 yards long, upon which sat a building with two doors facing the railway line. On one door, Station Master was written, and to the right of this door was a window. Above the window it read, Tickets. On the remaining door it said, Waiting Room. Outside the station master's office, there were 3 truck tires painted white, and in the middle of these grew cannas, their long flat leaves dusty and shredded with the blooms equally torn and bedraggled looking. Can you see that everything I've said is actually incorporated here? The word bedraggled is key here. The flowers were bedraggled looking. Look at the sense of touch and sight and everything that's been used here, and how plain the writing was, but the details gave us the idea of what this platform looked like. Another quick one, of course this is a bit more elevated and erudite, so it comes from Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. The grass is green and matted. You cannot see the soil. It holds the rain and the mist, and they seep into the ground, feeding the streams in every kloof. It is well tended, and not too many cattle feed upon it. Not too many fires burn it, laying bare the soil. Stand unshod upon it, for the ground is holy, being even as it came from the Creator. Keep it, guard it, care for it keeps man, God's men, cares for men. Destroy it, and man is destroyed. Lovely piece of description ending in a reflection. So you see that reflection can also come into the description, and the reflection relates to the description as well. Fine. Then I challenge you to write a little descriptive paragraph. If you ask yourself, for instance, if you were to explain or to describe to somebody what pink means, and the person is blind or the person is colorblind, how would you describe pink to such a person? It's an example. Describe a scene or a place that's clearly etched in your memory. Remember I said, know yourself, know your own memories, know who you are, write about that. Or describe a person that you admire. It might be your father, your uncle, a neighbor. Make use of the topic sentences. Focus on the topic. Choose your words carefully for special effects. Use adjectives and adverbs sparingly. Use nouns and verbs effectively. Create images involving as many senses as possible. Use original similes and metaphors, and vary your sentence types. Do that in one paragraph, and you might be surprised what you find. And it might just one day aid you a little bit when you're sitting in the exam and you think back to that one paragraph that you were so proud of that you had written, about this favorite place and how you can perhaps incorporate some of it into your essay, which of course you can because it's yours. You're not plagiarizing. You haven't learned anything off by heart necessarily or pushed it into a heading. It's still yours. So, of course, you can use that